He told her she would never make it. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam the door. He simply said it with the kind of cold certainty that lingers long after the echo fades. Diana stood there, hand resting over the swell of her stomach, unable to speak. The man she loved, the father of her unborn child, had just declared her future worthless and walked away without looking back. In that moment, Atlanta didn't feel like the city of dreams. It felt like concrete, hard, unfeeling, and cracked with betrayal. Alexander didn't flinch as he walked out into the night. A man of tailored suits, real estate deals, and generational privilege, he returned to his world of marble countertops and high-rise meetings, convinced he had just dodged a life of burden. He had no intention of turning around, no regrets, no second thoughts. To him, Diana was a brief chapter that had run its course. She wasn't wife material, he'd later say to a colleague. She was warm, passionate, full of soul, but to him, not someone who belonged in his boardroom world. She had faith. He had forecasts. She had a heartbeat. He had a bottom line. And he believed, without question, that she'd struggle to survive. That single motherhood would swallow her whole. But what Alexander failed to understand was this. Diana was not the kind of woman you bet against. 18 years passed, and on one morning in downtown Atlanta, in a marble lobby where Alexander now conducted his high-stakes development meetings, a headline blinked across the news screen. Young Atlanta visionary disrupts tech real estate sector, empowering local communities while redefining urban development. There was a photograph attached. The woman in the image stood poised at a podium, addressing a crowd of eager youth and seasoned investors. Her voice wasn't audible, but her presence was commanding. Her name? Anna Monroe. Alexander froze. He had seen that face before, not on any business card, not at any networking event, but in his past. She had Diana's eyes, his jawline, and a fire he couldn't place, but somehow knew he helped create. His assistant was still speaking, but he heard none of it. All he could see was the reality, hitting him like a freight train. The woman on that screen wasn't just building a company. She was building something that could dismantle his own. She wasn't just talented. She wasn't just a threat. She was his daughter, and the empire, now shaking the foundation of his fortune, carried her name. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you thought they'd be the one to stand by you through it all? Someone who made promises in quiet moments, swore they'd never leave, only to turn around when the weight got heavy. Diana believed in the man she chose. She didn't just see Alexander for who he was. Powerful, respected, wealthy. She believed in what they could become together. She thought they were building something lasting. Love, family, future. But all it took was one conversation, one decision, for it all to collapse. He left her, not because she failed him, but because he doubted her strength to thrive without him. He couldn't imagine a world where she could win on her own. And maybe that's the part that hurts the most. Not the leaving, but the way he believed she wouldn't survive. What do you do when someone who knew your heart decides you're not worth the fight? What happens when they say you'll never make it and walk away before you even get the chance to try? Some people crumble under that kind of betrayal. But Diana, she got up, she dried her tears, and she worked. No, it wasn't easy. She didn't have the luxury of time, or help, or breaks. She had bills, a baby growing inside her, a world that looked at single mothers with judgment. She had moments where exhaustion made her question herself. But quitting That was never an option. And here's the truth most people never tell you. The people who are written off early often become the ones who write the final chapter. Now, fast forward nearly 2 decades. Her daughter, the same child Alexander thought would be a burden, has become a woman whose face is lighting up every business blog in the country. Her company is winning contracts, disrupting industries, and doing it with heart, style, and purpose. And the man who once walked away, he's watching it all unfold, not as a proud father, but as a man whose empire is suddenly at risk. His past decisions, his ego, his pride, it all leads back to that one night. That one sentence, "You'll never make it." Now it's her daughter's name that investors are whispering with respect. Her daughter's logo on the billboards, replacing his, and her daughter's vision that threatens to shift the very foundation of the fortune he once built alone. You ever had someone doubt you, ever been counted out, only to rise so high they have no choice but to look up? Then stay with me, because this story, it was written for you. She didn't have venture capital. She didn't have a last name that opened doors. What she had was a mother who taught her how to build from nothing. Diana raised Anna with love, but also with strategy. While other kids were learning cartoons, Anna was learning customer service at her mother's shop counter. While others were playing in the yard, she was studying how invoices worked, how to design websites, how to build community, and still show up with grace. By the time Anna turned 18, she wasn't just smart. She was unstoppable. She founded her company from the ground up, not with seed money, but with sacrifice. And what started as a neighborhood project turned into something far greater. A tech-powered, culturally rooted, community-first business that began reshaping Atlanta's future in real time. She hired young people, overlooked by other firms. She reinvested in communities that had been stripped bare. She built a movement, not just a business. And while all of that was happening, Alexander remained blind to it, too focused on expansion, too confident in his own status, too wrapped in his elite bubble to realize that a storm had been quietly forming, and it carried his bloodline until one day a simple news article cracked his world open. There she was, Anna, the name he didn't recognize, but the eyes he did. In one brief moment, everything he believed about control, success, and legacy came crashing down. This woman was taking meetings with the same investors he once mentored. She was being offered contracts in sectors he thought he owned. Her voice was being quoted in the same financial circles that once worshipped him. Only now they were listening to her, and it wasn't just the business overlap that unnerved him. It was the fear, because Anna's company wasn't just succeeding, it was competing. And if things kept going the way they were, it would overtake his. He paced his office, pulling up interviews, stats, company forecasts. Each click confirmed the truth. Anna Monroe was not a phase. She was a force. And beneath the rising panic came a realization that stunned him silent. This girl, this rising star, was the daughter he walked away from. And now, every boardroom she entered was a reminder that he had once underestimated the wrong woman. Because Diana didn't just survive. She raised a legacy, one that now threatens to eclipse the very fortune he thought would define him. So now, you're probably wondering, did he apologize? Did she forgive him? Did the daughter destroy his empire? Or did something more powerful unfold? Stay with me, because this isn't just a story about walking away or coming back. It's not just about power shifting hands or fortunes falling apart. This is about something bigger. It's about the kind of strength you earn, not from revenge, but from rising with dignity. It's about a woman who chose grace when the world gave her every reason to hate. It's about a daughter who turned pain into purpose, and purpose into power. And it's about a man who finally had to face what he left behind, and who he became because of it. In a city where history is always watching, where black excellence meets sharp glass ceilings, one woman refused to bow. And now, she and her daughter are rewriting what it means to win. This is their story, a story of perseverance, of legacy, of a fortune built by faith, and a family redefined by fire. Atlanta hummed with contradiction. The same streets where civil rights leaders once marched now carried Teslas and tech executives. Murals of black heroes decorated concrete walls across the city, while construction cranes loomed above neighborhoods that were once entirely black, now slowly replaced by yoga studios and overpriced coffee shops. The soul of the city wasn't gone. It was just fighting to stay visible. For people like Diana Monroe, Atlanta was both home and battleground. Born and raised in a neighborhood off Cascade Road, she carried the warmth of Southern culture with her. Sweet tea on the porch, choir rehearsals on Wednesday, block parties that lasted until the streetlights blinked on. Her roots ran deep, tied to the generations that had weathered Atlanta's storms long before the developers arrived. But those same roots were under pressure. Rent was rising faster than wages. Apartments once filled with elders and cousins were now home to transplants, with money and no connection to the soil beneath their feet. Diana watched childhood landmarks get bulldozed for lofts and luxury shops. And yet, there was beauty, too. Atlanta's essence thrived in barbershops, church pews, HBCU campuses, and the back patios of soul food diners. Black-owned bookstores still hosted spoken-word nights. Sorors and frat brothers still gathered for homecoming cookouts. Even as the skyline changed, the people held tight to what mattered. It was in this complicated mix of progress and pressure that Diana carved out her early adult life, filled with ambition, resilience, and an unshakable belief in love. Diana met Alexander Whitmore on a Thursday afternoon, the kind that felt ordinary until it changed everything. She was delivering a catering order to a downtown corporate office. It was a side hustle she picked up on top of her administrative job and weekend church work. Dressed in a clean apron and pressed slacks, she carried trays of food up polished marble floors to the 18th floor of a high-rise she'd never been in before. Alexander stepped out of a meeting room just as she was setting the last dish down. He was tall, sharp-featured, with the kind of quiet confidence that came from knowing your last name could open doors. His family had money, old money, and his presence made it clear he'd never had to wonder how rent would be paid. Still, it wasn't arrogance that struck her. It was curiosity. He asked who made the food. When she said it was hers, his brows lifted, impressed. That small moment, his interest, her pride, started something neither of them expected. He called her the next day. At first, Diana was cautious. A white man from Buckhead with business degrees and country club ties? They didn't exactly come from the same world. But Alexander was persistent, charming, and surprisingly attentive. He asked about her dreams, remembered the names of her siblings, and even showed up at her church's fundraiser one weekend. To Diana, it felt like a bridge had been built between two Atlantas, one of inherited power, the other of earned resilience. She didn't ignore the differences between them. She simply believed love was stronger than legacy. Their romance unfolded quietly at first. Dinner dates became weekend getaways. Alexander introduced Diana to a lifestyle that felt like a different country. Valet service, art auctions, gala nights in hotels with skyline views. At first, she felt out of place, but Alexander made her feel welcome. At least privately. Publicly, they kept things subtle. He said his family wouldn't understand just yet. She didn't push. Over time, Alexander's apartment became their shared space. He cleared a drawer for her, bought her favorite tea, learned to enjoy the spices in her cooking, and the gospel songs she hummed in the mornings. And then came the news. Diana sat on the edge of their bed, holding a pregnancy test with shaking hands. Tears welled in her eyes, not from fear, but from the overwhelming emotion of creating life. She was going to be a mother. When she told Alexander, he went silent. Not angry, not joyful, just blank. He said all the right things at first. We'll figure it out. It's unexpected, but not unwelcome. You'd be a great mom. But something behind his eyes had changed. Diana felt it. She tried to ignore it. For a little while, they continued as usual, but she could sense his detachment. Missed calls, late nights, meetings that never ended. He'd sit through dinner with his phone face up on the table, barely listening. And deep down, she knew the love hadn't died. It had just become inconvenient. The shift didn't come from Alexander alone. It came from the whispers in boardrooms and the tension over brunch with his mother. Are you still seeing that girl from the West End? His brother had asked, not hiding the tone in his voice. You know people talk. His mother was more direct. She seems sweet, but have you thought about the optics? Your associates have expectations, Alexander. Alexander tried to defend Diana. He told them she was hard-working, grounded, a businesswoman in her own right. But the unspoken message was clear. She didn't fit. In his world of generational connections and calculated alliances, love wasn't enough. Appearances mattered more than authenticity. His colleagues joked behind his back. His mentor warned him, there's a fine line between love and liability in this city. Don't cross it. Day by day, those voices chipped away at the foundation Diana thought was stable. The same man who once asked how she made her cornbread now avoided conversations about the baby. The same man who said he admired her drive now questioned whether she was ready for this next phase of life. It was a Thursday, oddly poetic, considering that's when they met. Diana had made dinner. Nothing fancy, just baked chicken and collard greens with cornbread on the side. She was glowing, belly round, apron tied neatly. Alexander came in late, loosened his tie, and barely said hello. He didn't sit down. I've been thinking, he started, her hands stilled on the plate she was setting. I can't do this, he said, not looking her in the eye. Diana blinked. Do what? This whole situation, the baby, the relationship. It's not going to work. She couldn't breathe. You're leaving? I'm not the man you think I am, he said quietly. And you're not going to make it clinging to a fantasy. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Alexander took a step back, as if the conversation was a business deal gone bad. You'll figure it out. You're strong. You're used to hard things. Then the final cut. But let's be real. You're on your own now. You won't make it if you keep pretending we're equals. He walked out before she could cry. The silence after the door closed was louder than any storm. Diana sank to the floor, hand on her belly. The air knocked out of her lungs. How do you grieve someone who's still alive? How do you explain to your unborn child that their father chose absence over love? She didn't eat that night, the next, but word spread, not through gossip, but through love. Her mother showed up with soup and scripture. Her pastor prayed with her over the phone. The ladies from her choir came by with groceries, while Miss Bernice from across the street sat with her for hours, just holding her hand. They didn't ask for details. They didn't need to. They just showed up. A week later, Diana stood up, weak but breathing. She held her stomach and whispered, "We're gonna make it. You and me." And just like that, the girl Alexander abandoned began to disappear. A woman built by faith, fire, and a fierce kind of grace began to rise. The hospital room was quiet, except for the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the faint hum of overhead lights. Diana lay on her side, gripping the edge of the sheet as another contraction took hold. Sweat glistened on her forehead. Her lip quivered, not from the pain, but from everything this moment represented. No one sat beside her bed in a tailored suit. No one held her hand whispering, "You've got this." Alexander was nowhere, but she wasn't entirely alone. Miss Bernice, the retired nurse from her street, sat near the foot of the bed with a calmness Diana leaned on. Sister Laverne from church read aloud a psalm, voice strong, steady, unshaken by emotion. And across the room, her best friend Yvette clutched a towel and offered encouragement every time Diana groaned through another wave. It wasn't the delivery Diana imagined, but in some ways, it was more sacred when Anna entered the world, eyes wide, skin glowing like morning sun, wrapped in soft blue cloth. The tears on Diana's face weren't of regret or loss. They were of arrival. The nurse placed the baby on her chest, and Diana whispered, "Welcome home, baby girl." Vet sniffled. Miss Bernie nodded. Sister Laverne murmured, "Look at God." There were no flowers from the father, no proud Facebook posts, no congratulatory emails. But there was warmth in that room, love, legacy, and in Diana's eyes, one thing burned clear. She may have been left, but her daughter would never feel abandoned. The first 6 months after Anna's birth were brutal. Diana returned to work just 3 weeks after delivery. Bills didn't care that she was healing. Rent didn't pause because she was sleep-deprived. She took on shifts at a bakery in the early mornings and cleaned offices at night, all while keeping Anna fed, clothed, and soothed through fevers and colic. She barely slept, but every moment she wasn't working, she was studying. She enrolled in a local community college for night courses in accounting and marketing. The laptop she used was second-hand, and her textbooks were borrowed, but her commitment was brand new and fierce. Sometimes she'd sit in the back of the lecture hall, nursing bruises on her soul from a hard day, but her hand would still be raised with questions. She asked about tax forms, branding principles, payroll structures, not just to pass tests, but to build something real. Her classmates admired her drive. Her professors often stayed after class to give her feedback, knowing she didn't have the same support others did. She worked on assignments during Anna's naps, on break at work, or even while riding the bus between shifts. Most nights she tucked Anna in, kissed her forehead, then sat at the kitchen table until her eyes burned. Her motto became, "Exhaustion isn't the end, it's the beginning." Slowly, she started applying what she learned. She designed flyers for local events, managed inventory for a friend's boutique, helped a small church rework its monthly expense sheets. She wasn't just learning business. She was building her own, one principle at a time. Diana never claimed to be a superhero. She asked for help, and Atlanta answered. Her neighbor, Miss Ruby, a widowed seamstress with 3 grown kids, became Anna's weekday grandma. She sang to her, taught her colors, and told stories about the city's past. Every afternoon, Diana would hear Anna's laughter from Ruby's porch, echoing like joy on loop. Sister Laverne offered Saturday babysitting whenever Diana needed time to study. She'd bring Anna to Sunday school, where Anna memorized hymns before she could spell her own name. Even the mailman, Mr. Clarence, would knock gently if he saw Anna sitting by the window too long, slipping her peppermints wrapped in scripture verses. And Yvette, loyal, bold, ever-present Yvette, never let Diana fall. She showed up with cooked meals, covered a shift when Diana caught the flu, and even braided Anna's hair before picture day. It was never charity. It was community. There was no playbook for single motherhood. But there was the love of women who understood the weight and helped carry it. At every milestone, first birthday, first step, first word, Diana didn't clap alone. She clapped beside a village that rooted for Anna like she was their own. This network didn't just fill in the gaps. It helped Anna grow up surrounded by strength, wisdom, and stories. Stories of survival, of faith, of making a way out of no way. From her earliest memories, Anna saw more than bedtime stories and cartoon mornings. She saw her mother counting receipts after dinner, organizing business cards with sleepy eyes. She saw Diana ironing uniforms at 5 a.m., whispering prayers under her breath before the city even woke up. She saw her smile at customers who disrespected her, not because she lacked pride, but because she refused to give anyone the satisfaction of breaking her. Anna watched Diana sew uniforms, bake orders, create marketing plans, all while staying present for spelling tests, school dances, and Sunday worship. She also saw the quiet moments, like when Diana sat on the edge of the bed, staring into space after paying bills, or when she wept silently after reading a letter from the bank that made no sense, or when she stood in front of the mirror and straightened her back before a pitch meeting, even if her shoes were worn and her stomach empty. But no matter what, Diana never let Anna carry the weight. Anna grew up knowing they didn't have everything, but what they had, they built, and she admired that more than any mansion or luxury car. Her mother's dignity taught her that success didn't start in boardrooms. It started at kitchen tables with unpaid invoices and dreams scrawled in notebooks. And it was from watching Diana's grind that Anna began sketching ideas of her own, ideas that would one day become blueprints for something far greater. It started with pound cakes and party flyers. One church member asked if Diana could bake for a baby shower. Another asked her to help create a flyer for their boutique's reopening. She said yes to both, not because she had time, but because she had vision. Word spread. Suddenly, Diana was being asked to cater small gatherings, design simple logos, and style events. She named her business Graceworks, a nod to both her faith and the labor she poured into every project. At first, it was all out of her tiny apartment kitchen. Anna helped mix batter, folded brochures, watched from her booster seat, while Diana piped frosting at midnight. Diana reinvested every dollar. She bought better cookware, took a short course in branding strategy, printed menus, built a basic website with tutorials she learned online. Clients grew. By year 3, she had secured regular gigs, weddings, corporate mixes, small launches. A lawyer helped her register her business officially. She hired 2 part-time helpers, both single mothers from her neighborhood. Her goal wasn't just profit, it was presence. Graceworks became a symbol of excellence that came from struggle and never apologized for it. One night after an especially long day, Diana and Anna sat on their worn couch, surrounded by dishes they were too tired to wash. Anna was 11, her curls tied up in a scarf, her legs tucked under her mother's lap. "Mom," she asked softly, "why do we work so much?" Diana didn't answer right away. She looked around at the chipped walls, the makeshift office on the dining table, the corkboard of dreams above the fridge. Then she took Anna's hands in hers. "Because we're not just surviving," she said. "We're building." Building what? A future no one can take. A life where your name means power. A story where you are never anyone's afterthought. Anna's eyes welled. Diana kissed her forehead. "Some folks inherit their empires," she whispered. "But baby, we're building ours. Brick by brick. Together." That moment sealed it. Anna didn't just believe in her mother. She believed in what they were becoming. Graceworks started with simple jobs. Birthday cupcakes, Sunday bulletins, and hand-lettered banners. Diana never said no to an opportunity, no matter how small. One flyer at a community brunch caught a church elder's eye. He needed catering for a leadership breakfast. She delivered hot trays, smiling through her exhaustion. The next week, someone else called, and then another. The phone didn't ring off the hook, but when it did, it rang with purpose. Word traveled quickly in Atlanta's close-knit black circles. Mothers at school pickup recommended her name. Pastors passed her business cards after services. Teachers invited her to set up tables at school fundraisers. Diana leaned into that momentum. She paid attention to detail. Not just food, but design. She printed branded menus, color-coded serving trays, even created mood boards for themed events. And people noticed. In a city fighting to preserve its culture, her work wasn't just useful. It was affirming. Black-owned businesses appreciated that Diana didn't just serve them. She understood them. That connection made all the difference. What started in a cramped apartment kitchen grew into a rhythm of deliveries, setups, and consultations. Diana wrote invoices late at night and packed orders at dawn. Weekends filled with catering, and weekdays with designing logos and materials for other businesses trying to make their own way. Graceworks wasn't just her side hustle anymore. It was a growing heartbeat in the neighborhoods that raised her. By age 12, Anna wasn't just helping. She was contributing. She had a natural eye for layout, a knack for design, and an intuition for what connected with people her age. She used school computers to draft early flyer concepts and studied social media trends in her free time. "Mom, this font makes your brand look old," she said once, redesigning a church flyer into something modern, sleek, and still soulful. Diana laughed. "Since when did you become the art director?" Anna grinned. "Since you gave me a laptop with Wi-Fi." They became a team. Diana handled bookings, food, and relationships. Anna handled digital. On weekends, they worked side by side. Diana prepped trays, and Anna drafted posts for Instagram, taking behind-the-scenes photos of their kitchen. She recorded mini time-lapse videos of cake frosting and plate setups, adding upbeat captions and hashtags. People responded. Their small but loyal following grew. Clients began referencing her posts when booking. "I saw your peach cobbler video. Do you still offer those sunflower table settings?" Anna's fingerprints were on every detail. She folded menus with precision. She created a color palette for their website. She even organized a shared calendar that helped them manage orders more efficiently. Most of all, she made her mother feel less alone in the hustle. They didn't just work together. They built trust. One day, after a double-order weekend, Diana handed Anna an envelope with $20 inside. "What's this for?" Anna asked. "For being my business partner," Diana said, eyes soft with pride. Anna didn't spend it. She taped it to her bedroom wall, beside a note that read, "We start small, but we grow big." For years, Diana juggled Grace Works with her overnight cleaning job. There were times she'd arrive at an event setup yawning, hands rough from scrubbing floors all night, but smiling anyway. She never let exhaustion show to clients, only excellence. Every dollar she made from Grace Works was split. Half went to bills, the other half went to savings. She tracked every cent, no vacation, no impulse buys. She resisted every tempting sale or personal reward. She had a goal, a space of her own. It took 3 years and the favor of a landlord who remembered her from a catering event at his niece's wedding. The space wasn't glamorous, just 600 square feet in a strip mall near Cascade Heights, but it had good light, a small prep area, and a front window that faced the street. Diana signed the lease with shaking hands. The first time she turned the key, she cried. Anna, now 13, painted the inside walls with her friends. Diana bought second-hand display tables and printed a vinyl banner to hang out front. Graceworks Studio was born. With the storefront came visibility, walk-in clients, a workspace that wasn't also their home. Diana expanded services, offering consultations, mini pop-ups for local creatives, and weekend design classes for teens. With the storefront came freedom. 1 month later, she submitted her resignation letter. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she walked out of her second job for the last time. She wasn't someone's employee anymore. She was a full-time owner. Atlanta was changing, but black women weren't waiting to be invited to the table. They were building their own. Diana found herself among a quiet revolution. At networking events in West End cafes and co-working spaces downtown, she met other women like herself, mothers, visionaries, multitaskers. Some were stylists, launching their own hair care lines. Others were non-profit leaders, building safe spaces for girls. Each of them carried the weight of dreams, once laughed at. Together, they became collaborators, not competitors. Diana joined a Facebook group of black women entrepreneurs across the city. They shared resources, swapped vendor lists, referred clients. She got invited to speak on a local panel called Building from the Bottom. She was nervous, but her story moved people. From that moment, support deepened. Other businesswomen sent her leads. One gifted her a branding session. A young law student helped her tighten up her contracts for free. In return, Diana offered her space for meetings and designed a logo for a fellow baker. There was no blueprint for the kind of support they gave each other. It was communal, intentional, rooted in survival, but aimed at growth. Diana didn't feel alone anymore. She felt part of a movement. One where black women weren't waiting to be chosen. They were choosing each other. The respect didn't come overnight. It came quietly, in the nods from fellow entrepreneurs, the smiles from elders who remembered her early days, and the repeat bookings from clients who now referred to her by name. She had become more than a vendor. She had become a symbol, a woman who kept showing up, even when no one clapped. A woman who held her head high after being told she'd never survive on her own. People began seeking her out, not just for services, but for guidance. She got calls from single mothers, asking how to start their own side hustle. High schoolers shadowed her for their business class assignments. Even city council reps requested her to cater functions and teach youth entrepreneurship sessions. And through it all, Diana stayed grounded. She credited every win to God, her daughter, and the community that caught her when she fell. She never forgot the nights of ramen dinners and maxed out schedules. Respect wasn't her goal, but now that she had it, she wore it with quiet pride, like a crown passed down from women who'd endured before her. The day the realtor handed her the keys, Diana held back tears for the sake of professionalism. It wasn't a mansion, just a cozy 2-bedroom brick home on a tree-lined block in southwest Atlanta, near good schools, walkable to church, close enough to their storefront. But it was theirs. No landlord, no noise from upstairs neighbors, no inspections every 6 months. A kitchen where she could cook without sharing counter space with invoices. A backyard where Anna could host sleepovers under string lights. When they walked inside that first time, Anna darted from room to room, calling dibs. Diana wandered slowly, hand trailing the walls, soaking in what they had built. There were no marble floors, but there was stability. No grand staircase, but there was peace. She framed their first $20 bill, the one she gave Anna, and hung it above the front door. Legacy, it read. They painted the living room together. That night, sitting on the new couch, Diana whispered, "We started with a prayer and a pound cake. Look at us now." Anna leaned her head on her mom's shoulder. They didn't just build a business. They were building home. Anna had always been curious. The kind of girl who asked why the website buttons on their church page were crooked, and how her mom calculated profit margins on the Graceworks order sheets. But at 15, that curiosity sharpened into passion. One day after school, she found a free online coding boot camp through a local non-profit and signed up. What started as a few clicks turned into late nights learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and even branding principles. Anna became obsessed, but not with tech for the sake of technology. She was interested in how tech could change lives in her community. She learned to build responsive websites from scratch, designed mock-ups for small businesses in her neighborhood, and started mapping out ways to connect youth-led projects through digital tools. She didn't stop there. Anna volunteered to help clean up the local park, but ended up organizing a digital petition to have the city renovated. She researched zoning regulations, drafted presentations, and emailed district leaders with data visualizations and policy suggestions. People began to notice her not just as Diana's daughter, but as someone with ideas, big ones. Her guidance counselor invited her to attend a local tech showcase. She showed up with a printed prototype of a mobile app that helped match teens with community service opportunities in their zip codes. When an attendee asked her what company she was interning for, she smiled and said, "Mine. I built it." That spark, once just flickering, now burned bright. Diana watched it unfold with quiet awe. She came home one evening to find Anna sketching logo ideas on the same table where Graceworks menus were once printed. The screen was filled with wireframes and branding charts. Most parents might have worried about distractions from school. Diana leaned in. She didn't tell Anna to wait. She didn't tell her to dream smaller. She simply asked, "What do you need to make it work?" Anna was stunned. "You really think I can do this?" Diana looked her daughter in the eyes and said, "Why not you?" From that day forward, she became her daughter's biggest investor, not just financially, but emotionally. She proofread pitch decks. She stood in the back of youth pitch competitions, clapping like her life depended on it. She reviewed copy on landing pages and even let Anna redesign the Graceworks website. When Anna worried she was too young, Diana reminded her of the strength she came from. "You were born in the fire," she said once. "Building is in your blood." She told stories of how she used to juggle 3 jobs with Anna strapped to her back. She laughed about failed client orders that turned into lessons, but she never centered herself. She always redirected the focus to Anna's potential. "Don't be afraid to take up space," she told her daughter. "Your dreams aren't too big. They're just right on time." Anna listened, and because of that belief, she started to fly. At 16, Anna launched her first official project, RootLink, a youth-focused digital hub that highlighted local Black-owned businesses, community events, scholarship resources, and volunteer opportunities, all designed for mobile-first access. She rallied a team of school friends, artists, coders, organizers, and turned their after-school hangouts into planning sessions. They met in Diana's living room, laptops open, whiteboards covered in sticky notes, music buzzing faintly in the background. RootLink wasn't just a website. It was a movement. Their slogan? Linking roots to resources. They offered design services for free to neighborhood startups. They partnered with local food pantries to launch a QR code donation campaign. They even created digital flyers for barbershops and corner stores, helping boost visibility for businesses being pushed out by rising rents and fancy competitors. Within 3 months, RootLink had 2,000 users, then 5,000, then 10,000. Word spread fast. Local newspapers did a feature. A city council rep invited Anna to speak on youth engagement. Non-profits requested her team to host digital workshops. And Graceworks? It became RootLink's unofficial sponsor, with Diana baking cookies for meetings and offering her storefront for teen-led brainstorming sessions. People didn't just follow Anna. They trusted her. Because she didn't just build tech as RootLink's reach expanded, Anna realized the platform wasn't just a service. It was a business. She registered the brand formally, creating a social enterprise model that blended revenue with reinvestment. She offered premium services to small businesses, branding packages, digital marketing, plans, and used the earnings to fund free youth programs and workshops. She hired a part-time operations lead, another high school senior from her robotics club, and brought in 2 juniors to manage the content calendar. The mission was clear: make tech accessible, make culture visible, make community non-negotiable. She hosted virtual town halls, ran pop-up booths at festivals, and created Instagram campaigns that highlighted the work of young creatives in Atlanta. RootLink helped artists launch digital stores, connected non-profits with volunteers, and even partnered with a bank to offer teen-focused financial literacy tools. It became more than a brand, became infrastructure, a digital town square where ideas could breathe. Anna often told her team, "If the world won't build something for us, we'll build it for ourselves." And she meant it. This wasn't about chasing popularity or going viral. It was about building something that could last, something grounded in love, equity, and action. She built connection. RootLink's first youth event started as an idea scribbled on a napkin. Anna wanted to create a space where teens could showcase their talents, network, and learn skills they weren't getting in traditional classrooms: branding, business planning, media production, grant writing. With Diana's help, she secured a small venue through a community partner. Graceworks donated food. Local business owners agreed to speak. Anna designed the event's look, managed the logistics, and recruited volunteers. She called it Link Up, Power from the Block. Over 100 teens showed up. There were workshops, live art installations, panels on launching your hustle without capital. And at the center of it all was Anna, mic in hand, jacket sleeves rolled up, leading like she was born for it. After that event, applications poured in, teens wanting internships, partnerships, or just someone to believe in their ideas. Anna responded by hiring 5 interns. She paid them through grant money and brand income. She made sure every single hire had a title, responsibilities, and mentorship. She told them, "If no one will hire us now, we'll hire each other." And she did. RootLink started building something no policy ever had: jobs, identity, purpose. In barbershops, libraries, and school parking lots, her name was mentioned with admiration. Not because of her background. Diana didn't shout about it. She didn't post about her daughter's success online or boast at family dinners. What she did was invest, silently, sacrificially, and completely. She used a portion of her Graceworks savings to buy RootLink's first set of office chairs. She paid for business license renewals, helped cover hosting fees, and stayed up after midnight, double-checking contracts and presentation decks. Sometimes she offered warm meals and quiet prayers. Sometimes she offered hard truths when Anna's ideas stretched thin. But always, she was present. She even cut back on her own business expansions to ensure RootLink had a financial cushion. "You're not just building for you," Diana told her one night. "You're building for the kids coming behind you." Anna nodded, heart full. They didn't call it an empire. That word felt too grand. But deep down they knew that's exactly what it was. A foundation had been laid, and from it, a rising structure of power, purpose, and possibility began to take shape, built not from inheritance, but from intention. And Diana knew, the same way she once built Graceworks with her bare hands, her daughter was now building something that would shake the ground beneath the very people who once said she'd never make it, because she made other people believe in their future. By the time she turned 18, Anna had already outgrown the labels the city tried to give her. She wasn't just a brilliant teen. She wasn't just Diana's daughter. She had become a force, and the rest of the country was finally taking notice. It began when an Atlanta-based business magazine published a short article, "Local Teen CEO Connects Communities Through Code." The piece focused on RootLink's social mission, its rapidly growing user base, and how the company helped small businesses stay alive in neighborhoods hit hardest by displacement. The article didn't go viral overnight, but it landed on the right desks. A national reporter picked up the story, then a tech blog. A week later, Anna's face appeared on the homepage of one of the most respected business media outlets in the country with the headline, "Black Youth CEO Changing Atlanta. One app at a time." The article was electric. It spoke about how Anna built her company from her mother's kitchen, how she hired teens instead of outsourcing, how she turned code into community power. It featured quotes from young employees who now had a sense of purpose, photos of her team, mostly teenagers, working from donated desks, fueled by homemade snacks and big ambition. By the end of the week, Rootlink's user base had doubled. Anna was invited to speak at a youth leadership summit in Washington, D.C. Major companies began reaching out for partnerships, and a few venture capitalists even attempted to schedule calls. But Anna was selective. She didn't want funding if it meant giving up control. She didn't build this to get rich. She built it to give her people room to breathe. And in that clarity, she became something few her age ever do: undeniable. Anna understood something many companies missed. People don't just want services. They want story, integrity, and relevance. Rootlink's branding reflected that perfectly. Every color was intentional, warm tones rooted in African heritage, balanced by bold fonts that demanded attention. The voice was youthful, but smart. The content was educational, but never preachy. Anna worked closely with her creative team, which included a 17-year-old video editor from East Point and a graphics intern from her old school. Together, they produced content that celebrated culture, highlighted impact, and made tech feel human. But it wasn't just the look. It was the model that made Rootlink soar. They didn't operate like a startup chasing fast exits. They operated like a movement with longevity in mind. The company charged ethical service fees that were affordable for small Black-owned businesses. They built in revenue-sharing models so interns could earn and learn. They launched digital literacy boot camps for elders. They created free online directories for community services. Their data policies were transparent. No one's information was sold. Their outreach was organic. They didn't buy attention. They earned it. And because of that, people trusted Rootlink. Schools began to adopt Anna's digital frameworks for student involvement. Non-profits used Rootlink's platform to track impact. A local tech incubator offered Anna office space rent-free for a year, just to be a part of her journey. What stunned people the most wasn't just how fast she grew. It was how grounded she remained. Every step forward came with a thank you to the people who helped build the road. The next evolution of Rootlink wasn't something Anna planned. It emerged from necessity. As more small businesses and longtime residents contacted her about being priced out of their neighborhoods, Anna realized something. Information wasn't enough. Access wasn't enough. People needed leverage. That's when she and her team began developing a new platform under the Rootlink umbrella, one that used digital mapping and predictive analysis to track incoming real estate developments in vulnerable communities. They called it Root Map. It allowed users, especially local entrepreneurs, to see in real time where rezoning was happening, which properties were changing hands, and what new projects were being proposed. The goal was simple: help communities organize early, buy in, or fight back with data. RootMap used public datasets, user-generated info, and strategic partnerships, local non-profits to keep people informed before displacement occurred, not after. It was the first tool of its kind, designed by and for Black and brown neighborhoods. And suddenly, Anna wasn't just the face of community tech. She was now a direct player in Atlanta's most lucrative and controversial industry, real estate. Developers began to pay attention. Investors began to feel uneasy. And behind all the concern was one man watching property forecasts from a high-rise office, unaware that the girl turning heads across the city was his own blood. Alexander Whitmore had done well for himself. In the 18 years since walking away from Diana, he built a portfolio that turned heads even among Atlanta's elite. From downtown condos to sprawling shopping centers, his properties stretched across some of the fastest-growing districts in the region. His firm, Whitmore Urban Holdings, was known for sharp negotiations, pristine builds, and quick turnovers. He hosted galas, donated to museums, sat on the board of a private charter school. To his colleagues, he was a visionary. To developers, a power broker. To city officials, a reliable donor. But beneath the tailored suits and polished LinkedIn features was a man who had buried his past so deeply it no longer felt real. He never spoke of Diana, never wondered about the daughters she carried when he left. He told himself it was cleaner that way. He had built his empire through calculation and resolve. Personal sentiment had no place in business, and certainly no place in memory. Until it did, the ballroom buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and quiet competition. Alexander stood near the bar, nodding politely at another hedge fund manager's joke, half listening to a pitch about mixed-use redevelopment on the Beltline. His eyes wandered toward a nearby monitor screen, cycling through media headlines relevant to the event's theme. Innovation in the urban South. And then he saw it. A headline, bright white text, against the red background. Atlanta's young visionary. Meet the 18-year-old building tech tools to block gentrification. The subhead read, Anna Monroe, founder of Rootlink, is rewriting who gets to shape the city. Alexander blinked, then froze. On screen was a photo. A poised young woman, standing at a podium, hand raised mid-speech, flanked by young creators behind her. There was something about her face, her eyes, something impossible to ignore. His hand trembled slightly. The wine glass tilted. A drop hit his cuff. He excused himself. Outside in the hallway, he pulled out his phone, searched the article, and read every word. The app, the brand, the non-profit work, the real estate analytics, the growth, the family-owned origin story. The kicker, Anna was born and raised in Atlanta by a single mother named Diana Monroe. The past he thought he outran had just caught up to him. In headlines, Alexander sat in his car, parked in front of a marble lobby his firm had developed, but he couldn't step inside. He couldn't get Anna's image out of his head. The resemblance was unmistakable. She looked like Diana, but sharper. She carried herself like someone who didn't need approval. He thought about the timeline, the year, the last words he said, the way Diana cried but never begged. He had dismissed her like an errand. Now, her daughter was rewriting headlines about equity in his city. His phone buzzed. An alert. Route map outpaces competitors with new city grant. He clicked the link. Another article. Another reminder that his world was no longer unchallenged. Her company wasn't just inspiring people. It was actively undercutting his projects. Route map had blocked a proposal Whitmore Holdings had submitted just 2 months earlier. Not through protests or boycotts, but through smart, strategic engagement. Anna had organized a neighborhood council, helped them draft a digital impact brief, and offered pro bono strategy using route maps tools. The council voted unanimously to reject the zoning request. It was the first time in years Alexander's firm had lost a bid in that district. The girl he left behind wasn't just successful. She was dangerous to his bottom line, to his pride, to the fragile lie he built around his absence. And worst of all, she didn't even know who he was. Yet, but soon, she would. Alexander didn't sleep that night. After leaving the gala in silence, he drove around the city aimlessly, the same city he once claimed to understand like the back of his hand. But now, it felt unfamiliar, changed, shaped by someone else's fingerprints. Anna Monroe, the name echoed in his mind, like a drum he couldn't silence. Back at his penthouse, he poured a glass of whiskey, but barely touched it. Instead, he sat at his desk and pulled out his laptop. He typed her name into a private search database, the one reserved for corporate vetting and high-level acquisitions. Birth date, founder's address, corporate structure, parent contact. Diana Monroe. The screen blurred for a moment. Diana, the woman he left without a second thought. The woman he told would never make it. And now her daughter had created a company, disrupting everything he built. He clicked through Rootlink's organizational documents, scanned media features, noted her nonprofit registration forms, watched a video of Anna presenting at a civic tech summit, her voice steady, her presence magnetic. It wasn't a hunch anymore. This was his daughter. Alexander leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. All those years he spent rewriting his life. They were crashing down, not because of an affair, not because of scandal, but because truth had a face, and it looked just like his. At 9 a.m. sharp, Alexander's legal and strategy teams gathered in the conference room. On the surface, it was a routine review of real estate prospects, but the mood shifted the moment his general counsel placed a thick folder on the table labeled Rootlink and Associated Entities. "This is the platform we flagged in District 7, his attorney began. "Turns out they're not just a youth nonprofit. They're leveraging data against major zoning bids, including yours." Alexander stared at the cover without blinking. They've already blocked 2 proposals, one in West Grove, another in Oak Hill. Both were targeted for mixed-use development. His VP of strategy chimed in. "They're efficient, organized, and tech-savvy. Their app crowdsources neighborhood data faster than our planning departments can draft impact statements." Another folder slid across the table. Demographic reports, media coverage, grant lists. "Sir," his finance lead added carefully, "if this model scales, they could neutralize your bid leverage citywide. Investors are watching closely." There's chatter. Alexander tapped the table once, signaling silence. "They're not just disrupting the narrative," his attorney continued. "They're becoming part of the regulation conversation. Which means, Alexander interrupted, voice low, "they're not just an irritant. They're a threat." No one spoke. No one had to. They all knew the truth. Rootlink wasn't just making noise. It was changing the rules, and doing it legally, publicly, and boldly. The worst part, Alexander couldn't challenge it without exposing who she was. He stared out the window of his 30th floor office, watching the skyline he once helped build stretch toward the morning sun. How long before the press connected the dots? The timelines were there. The names were similar. The story was compelling. Too compelling. A single mother, raising a daughter to rival the very system that abandoned her. The media would feast on it, and Alexander the man who walked away from both, would become a cautionary tale. A meme, a quote beneath a tweet that read, "When the one you left builds something stronger than you ever could." He could already hear the questions at charity galas, the pity masked as polite interest, the think pieces from journalists who'd never met him, but knew exactly what to say. And worst of all, his investors. Some would pull back, not because of morality, but because of optics. Boards don't like messy bloodlines. Alexander had built his life on silence, on image, on keeping things clean. This wasn't clean. This was wild, controlled. A child he hadn't claimed now, standing toe-to-toe with the men he golfed with every Sunday. His stomach turned. And yet, what could he do? He couldn't deny the girl's brilliance, couldn't erase the past, couldn't rewrite what was already unfolding. He picked up his phone and typed a message to his PR director. Need to discuss potential family disclosures. Hypothetical. Then deleted it. Too risky. Too soon. Too real. Alexander called his acquisitions director into his office late that afternoon. "I want to explore purchasing Rootlink," he said, voice even. The director looked up, surprised. "The youth company?" Alexander nodded. "If we control it, we neutralize the risk." A few calls were made. 2 days later, an intermediary was assigned to pose as a socially conscious investor. The message? They wanted to offer Anna seed capital in exchange for majority equity, framed as an opportunity for her to scale nationally, open offices in 5 cities, and partner with leaders in the development world. The offer was generous on the surface, but Alexander knew better. It was a cage, dressed like a crown. If she accepted, they could quietly reshape the mission, water down the resistance, and turn Rootlink into a corporate tool, rather than a neighborhood shield. But things didn't go as planned. Anna's team responded quickly, firmly, and without hesitation. Rootlink does not entertain acquisition offers that compromise community control or leadership. "Thank you." Alexander's jaw tightened as he read the email. He instructed the team to double the offer. They declined again. This time Anna sent the reply herself. Her final line hit like a brick. "We're not interested in being absorbed by the very systems we were built to resist." That was the moment Alexander knew he couldn't buy her, and worse, she was speaking his language. Only better. Alexander had spent 2 decades mastering dominance, takeovers, silence clauses, one-sided deals. His empire was built on leverage and perception. He bought what he couldn't beat and buried what he couldn't buy. Rootlink didn't play by those rules. Anna ran her company on values, transparency, cooperation, reinvestment. She elevated youth. She rejected ego. She avoided vanity press. Even in success, she remained accessible, answering emails personally, thanking janitors at events, sharing credit in every interview. And investors loved her for it. Alexander watched with growing tension as more city grants went her way, as property developers began to backpedal from projects she spotlighted, as even members of his own circle whispered admiration for the girl who's actually walking the talk. She had become the face of ethical innovation, and that face, it was one he could no longer pretend not to recognize. Everything about her presence, her clarity, her posture, her resolve, mirrored the kind of woman he once claimed was too small to matter. The irony was suffocating. The values he once called weak were now winning. He didn't use assistants, didn't send emails, just dialed the number from memory, the one that hadn't changed since the day he left. It rang once, then twice. "Hello?" Diana's voice came through, calm but guarded. There was a pause. "It's me," he said. Silence. She didn't hang up, but she didn't speak either. "I just want to talk," he continued, "in person. Just one time. Why now? Because I owe you that much. And because," he hesitated, "because there are things I didn't handle right, and they're catching up to me." Diana didn't say yes, but she didn't say no. 3 days later, they met in the back room of an old coffee shop near Cascade. He arrived first. She entered with the quiet strength of someone who didn't come for drama, only truth. Alexander stood, but she didn't move to greet him. "I don't want apologies," she said. "I want clarity." He nodded, sat. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, they talked, not as strangers, not as lovers, but as two people standing in the aftermath of a decision that changed everything. And when he finally said her name, when he finally said Anna's name, Diana looked him in the eye and said, "She's everything you ran from, and everything I chose to stay and fight for." He had no rebuttal, only regret. It was a Thursday, the same day of the week he left her all those years ago. Diana sat alone in the back office of Graceworks, the very room where she had once cried in silence, thinking her world had ended. Today she was calm, composed, but alert. The door opened at exactly 2 p.m. Alexander walked in, his presence carefully curated as always. Charcoal grey suit, clean-shaven, subtle cologne. Still tall, still polished, still measured in every step. But this time there was no confidence behind the eyes. There was tension in his shoulders, a tightness in his jaw that suggested uncertainty. He looked around. Wood panels, vision boards, a photo of Anna taped to the wall, smiling in front of her first route to Link Pitch Night. "Nice place," he offered softly. Diana didn't stand. "Let's not waste time with compliments," she said. Alexander nodded once, setting his briefcase down gently, as if trying not to disturb the air between them. He sat across from her, adjusting his sleeves, clearing his throat. Diana watched him, remembering the version of herself that once thought this man was the answer to her future. That version no longer existed. Alexander reached for words, like a man walking through fog. "I wasn't sure you'd agree to this meeting." "I didn't," Diana replied. "But I was curious." "Curious? To see if you still speak in circles." He offered a half smile, but she didn't return it. "Look, Diana, I know this is long overdue. No, you don't know. And if you came here to soften the past with polite phrases, you're wasting both our time." Alexander sat back slightly, caught off guard. "You left me pregnant. You left without money, without explanation, without even the dignity of closure," she continued. "You didn't just walk away from me. You walked away from your daughter, from responsibility, from truth." Her voice didn't rise. She didn't need to shout. Her calm was more cutting than rage. "I'm not that woman anymore, Alexander. The one you left, standing in the kitchen, holding her stomach and wondering how she'd survive." "I see that," he said quietly. She folded her hands. "Do you?" Because this, her posture, her clarity, the room around her, This wasn't for show. It was proof. She had rebuilt herself brick by brick, not to win him back, but to make sure she'd never need a man like him again. "You want to talk?" she asked, leaning slightly forward. "Then let's talk facts." Alexander said nothing, only nodded. "I worked 3 jobs to feed our child. I studied during my breaks. I built this business from a borrowed oven and a prayer. I sat through nights where Anna had fevers and no insurance. I smiled at clients while my electricity was hanging on by grace. I did it all without help." Alexander's mouth tightened. "I didn't chase you down. I didn't call your family. I didn't beg. I took the pain and turned it into purpose." She reached for a file, sitting on the desk. "This is Graceworks' latest quarterly report," she said. "Profitable. Debt-free. Black woman-owned. This is a brand that stands on its own." She placed a second folder beside it. "And this is Rootlink, your daughter's company, the one your team tried to buy out last week." Alexander's face shifted. Diana didn't flinch. "I know everything, Alexander. The backdoor offer, the planned dilution, the clause that would have forced her into silence." She leaned back. "You want to talk? Let's talk about the legacy you tried to erase." Her words didn't cut from emotion. They cut from evidence. Alexander exhaled, adjusting his cufflinks out of habit. "I deserve every word of that," he admitted. "I made choices that were selfish and cowardly, but I didn't come here to pretend. I came to take responsibility." Diana gave him nothing. "I want to be involved," he continued, "not as a father figure, not as some savior, but as someone who can support the vision." "Support how?" "I have capital, connections, influence. I could help Rootlink scale, national exposure, multi-city expansion. She could be on magazine covers, speaking circuits. If she wants it." Diana tilted her head. "And you want?" He paused. "A chance to be useful, even if it's from the background." Diana stood and walked toward the window. "Funny. You left because you thought we'd slow you down. Now we're the ones moving faster." He didn't respond. "You don't get to fund a mission you never believed in," she said. "Anna's platform wasn't built for headlines. It was built to shield the very communities your buildings displace. I'm not trying to take credit." "But you will?" she interrupted. "Because that's how you've always operated. Control, attach, and then disappear when it's convenient." His voice cracked slightly. "I don't want to disappear." "Not again." Diana turned to face him. "That part's not up to you." Diana walked back to her desk and sat down. There was silence. A thick kind of silence that came not from awkwardness, but finality. "Let me make this clear," she said. "We are not a charity case. We are not a broken story that needs your fix. We made it without you. We don't need saving." Alexander nodded slowly. "I see that now. You're not here to help," she added. "You're here to relieve yourself of guilt. But I'm not interested in being part of your redemption arc." He looked down at the floor. "I'm not angry anymore," Diana continued. "Not in the way I used to be. But I'm not going to let you buy your way into our lives." Her tone were even, calm. "It's too late for that." Alexander swallowed hard, his voice low. "What should I do then?" Diana looked at him with an unwavering stare. "You should sit with what you chose, and you should be proud. Not of what you built, but of what you abandoned, and what it became without you." He nodded, defeated, but respectful. "I just want to tell her," he whispered. The truth. Diana stood again, this time slower, measured. You'll get that chance, but you won't get control. The office door creaked open. Anna stepped inside, tablet in hand. Hey, Mom. The delivery truck. She stopped. Her eyes shifted from Diana to the man sitting across from her. Alexander stood. Anna blinked, confused. Who is... Diana inhaled deeply. Come here, baby. Anna approached slowly. Her brows furrowed. Alexander opened his mouth, but no words came. Diana rested her hand gently on Anna's arm. This is Alexander Whitmore, she said softly. He's your father. The room folded in on itself. Anna blinked. Again. What? Silence. She looked at him, then at Diana, then back again. Alexander took a step forward. I didn't plan for this to happen like a... Don't. Diana warned gently. Let her breathe. Anna stepped back. You're the reason she raised me alone. Her voice was low. I didn't know how to stay, Alexander said, but I was wrong. I'm here now to own that. Anna shook her head. You were there when I was nowhere. And now that I've built something, now you come. Tears welled in her eyes, but none fell. Diana reached for her, but Anna pulled away. I need to go. Alma, Alexander started. She turned toward the door, voice flat. My name isn't yours to say. And just like that, she walked out, slamming the door behind her. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was filled with the sound of everything Alexander had lost and could never get back fully. Anna didn't remember how she got home that evening. All she knew was the pounding in her chest and the noise in her mind. She slammed her bedroom door and sat at the edge of her bed, hands trembling. The air felt heavier than usual, as though the room itself was holding its breath. Her phone buzzed with messages from teammates about upcoming Root Link meetings, but she couldn't respond. Her world, once so perfectly balanced, now tilted on its axis. Her father, the man who'd walked out on her mother, the man whose face she didn't know. Until today, the man standing in her office, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her laptop. She'd faced reporters, investors, and critics without flinching. But this cracked something deep inside. When Diana knocked softly, Anna didn't answer. After the second knock, she finally said, Come in. Her mother entered slowly, not as a businesswoman, not as the strong pillar the city admired, but as a mother terrified of losing her daughter's trust. Baby, Diana began. Don't, Anna said, voice trembling. Not yet. I wanted to tell you... When? Anna snapped, standing up. When it didn't matter anymore? When he died? When my name showed up next to his on some property report? Tears blurred her vision, but her voice stayed steady. You let me grow up wondering if he ever existed, and you... She stopped herself, pacing. You sat there and let me meet him, like he was some stranger off the street. Diana's silence wasn't guilt. It was pain. I didn't protect him, Anna, she said softly. I protected you. Anna stared at her, the words slicing in two directions. Love and betrayal fighting for space in her heart. They sat at the kitchen table, the same one where Diana once balanced books and brainstormed business ideas. Only now, it felt like a witness to history. Start from the beginning, Anna said. All of it. Diana folded her hands. We met when I was 23. I was working at a marketing firm. He was consulting on a development project. He saw potential in me. Or so I thought. Anna listened, jaw tight. He promised partnership, marriage, everything. But when I got pregnant, things changed. His family made it clear they didn't approve. They said I'd ruin his future. He listened to them. Diana's eyes glistened, but her tone stayed even. He left before you were born. No message, no visit, nothing. I went into labor without him. He knew he just didn't care enough to stay. Anna closed her eyes, trying to picture it. Her mother in a hospital bed, alone, abandoned, fighting pain and shame, while the man responsible was somewhere in a boardroom, probably smiling. I used to think, Diana continued, that maybe he'd come back once he saw you. But then I realized I couldn't raise you waiting on someone who didn't want to be found. Anna swallowed hard. So you erased him? I moved on, Diana corrected gently. I built life from ashes, not because I wanted to lie, but because I wanted you to know your strength came from you, not his last name. Anna's throat tightened. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. She wanted to believe, but all she could do was whisper. I should have known. The next day, Alexander called. She didn't answer, but she listened to the voicemail. Anna, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but please, I just need to explain, not as a businessman, as your father. The word father burned her ears. She deleted the message before it finished playing. Later that night, she found herself back at Graceworks. The lights were low. Diana was working late, reviewing supplier invoices. She looked up when Anna walked in, but before she could speak, Anna said sharply, You both made decisions that shaped my life. You left. She stayed. But neither of you told me the truth. Diana's pen froze mid-air. You walked away. Anna continued, eyes on the floor, and you stayed silent. Different sins. Same wound. Diana exhaled slowly, as if trying to hold back years of exhaustion. I never wanted to see that look in your eyes, she said quietly. That's why I kept it buried. But it's mine to see. Anna shot back. It's my story, too. Tears threatened, but she blinked them away. I fought my whole life to be respected, to be seen. And the whole time, the man who doubted my mother's worth was sitting in skyscrapers built on stolen ground. Diana reached for her, but Anna stepped back. Don't comfort me right now, Mom. I need to feel this. And she walked out, leaving the door open, a silent storm following her into the night. For 3 days, Anna disappeared from the public eye. Her assistant fielded calls, her team handled meetings, and social media noticed her absence. Where's Anna? Became a trending tag. But Anna wasn't hiding. She was planning. She sat in her apartment, surrounded by files, old clippings, and property documents. She dug through city archives and news articles, connecting every thread between. Her father's firm and the neighborhood's route link fought to protect. He'd displaced hundreds, maybe thousands. Every polished deal, every new luxury tower, it came at someone else's expense. Now she had the tools to expose him. A lawyer friend called, offering to help her file a public claim or class action. Another suggested a documentary angle, the daughter who brought down her father's empire. Sponsors would pay. Networks would stream it. But the more she read, the less certain she felt. Revenge looked good on paper. But in reality, it looked like chains. Every email she drafted felt heavy. Every statement she rehearsed sounded hollow. Was she building justice, or repeating the same cycle of destruction? Her reflection stared back from the dark laptop screen. For the first time, she didn't recognize herself. On the fourth night, Diana showed up at Anna's door. No judgment, no lecture, just quiet understanding. Anna opened the door halfway, expecting another round of apologies. But Diana didn't say a word. She stepped inside, carrying a small brown box. She placed it on the table. Inside were letters, photographs, and old Graceworks receipts. The early days, back when survival was the only plan. "I kept these," Diana said softly, "because I wanted you to see where we came from." Anna looked through them slowly. Photos of her as a baby in mismatched clothes, flyers from their first events, and a picture of Diana standing outside their first rented storefront, smiling despite the exhaustion in her eyes. "Baby," Diana said, voice gentle but firm. "You can't heal by hurting." Anna's eyes glistened. "I'm not asking you to forgive him," Diana continued. "I'm asking you to protect your peace. Don't let his absence become your anchor." Anna looked up. "He deserves consequences." "He does," Diana agreed. "But don't let your brilliance turn into bitterness. Your purpose was never about proving him wrong. It's about proving yourself right." Those words landed like medicine. Slow, necessary, healing. That night, Anna sat alone in her office. The same space where her company was born from late nights and faith. She opened her laptop and stared at the headlines, featuring her father's name. She could take him down in a single post, one viral thread, one interview. But then she thought about her mother's words, about every teen who looked up to her, about every community, depending on route link. What would her empire stand for if she used it to destroy instead of rebuild? She closed the tabs, opened a blank document, and began typing a new statement. Route link was never built to tear anyone down. It was built to uplift, to empower, to give voice to those ignored by systems built on silence. We rise, not from vengeance, but from vision. When she posted it, the internet exploded with praise. Her followers shared it with pride. While some still demanded blood, most understood something deeper. Anna had chosen grace over war. She leaned back in her chair, tears spilling freely now. Not from pain, but release. Somewhere across town, Alexander saw the post, and for the first time in years, he didn't reach for control. He reached for reflection, because his daughter hadn't inherited his power. She'd inherited her mother's strength, and that was something no fortune could ever match. Alexander sat at the head of the conference table, marble floors echoing under his impatient footsteps as his executives filed in. His face, once composed with effortless charm, had hardened into something more strategic and desperate. "Atlanta's West Corridor project," he began, clicking the remote to bring up a slide deck, "is our next target. The city wants redevelopment. We'll give it to them, at a price." His company's plan, dressed in sophisticated architecture and buzzwords, was nothing more than a land grab. Displace long-standing residents, replace legacy with luxury, and funnel profits into upper-tier investors who had never even walked the blocks they now salivated over. But this time, the city's heartbeat fought back. Word spread fast through community town halls and social media threads. Older residents recognized the pattern. Churches and grassroots groups voiced concern. And quietly, in a corner of West End, Anna heard the whispers, and she took notes. Anna sat cross-legged on the couch, Her laptop balanced on her knee, scanning the city's request for proposal. RFP. He's coming for this one, she muttered. But we're getting there first. Her company, Bloomrise, didn't just have data and dollars. It had community trust. Anna's team, built from local coders, architects, and former tenants turned professionals, dove deep. They created an alternative proposal, transparent, affordable, sustainable, and tech-enhanced, to include digital infrastructure for residents, not just for tourists. While Alexander's team pitched glass towers and concierge services, Anna model brought green energy, tech hubs, and cultural preservation zones. She embedded QR codes on community murals, giving digital voice to stories that dated back generations. She mapped every elder-owned home and added protections. Her team partnered with Black-owned banks for microloans. The deadline hit. Her bid arrived 1 hour before his, and when the city opened both, the difference was stark. Inside the city's development office, a panel of commissioners, urban planners, and legal advisors flipped between the two proposals. One plan oozed opulence and exclusivity. Alexander's. The language was clean, but the fine print revealed escalating rents, limited community access, and minimal reinvestment. The other, Anna's, it read like a love letter to Atlanta's roots. Her plan offered job training, youth entrepreneur incubators, a preservation of Black historical landmarks, and an open-source platform for residents to track every construction milestone. Commissioner Layla Chen turned to the others. One of these builds a city for now. The other builds it for forever. Back in her office, Anna wasn't waiting for the city's approval. She was already mobilizing, teaching young people how to pitch programming apps, to track tenant rights, and creating temporary shelters for displaced residents. She wasn't just building structures. She was building infrastructure for dignity. The press conference was brief, but seismic. The mayor stood tall at the podium, flanked by members of the Urban Development Board. Today, the city of Atlanta chooses not just a project, but a principle. We are awarding the West Corridor revitalization contract to Bloomrise Inc. Cameras flashed. Social feeds erupted. Hashtags like legacy-led and hashtag Anna the Architect trended for days. Alexander watched from his office screen, jaw tight, fists clenched. His board demanded explanations. How did a 19-year-old beat us? But it wasn't just Anna's youth. It was her vision, her clarity, her why. Anna didn't speak with vengeance. She spoke with vision. Her proposal didn't just win. It redefined what development looked like in the 21st century. And for the first time, Alexander's empire had cracks. Diana stood in the back of the crowd, hands clasped in front of her, eyes on her daughter's silhouette against the city stage. No press, no interviews, just presence. Her memories danced. The nights walking home from shifts with baby Anna in one arm and a broken stroller in the other. The cold dinners, the missed events, the silent tears on her pillow. All of it had led to this. Anna's voice rang out over the speakers. We're not just rebuilding walls. We're rebuilding trust. Brick by brick, bite by bite, block by block. The crowd roared. Diana blinked back tears, not of sorrow, not of regret, but of awe. Her daughter, the child she raised with love and grit, wasn't just thriving. She was commanding storms. As Bloomrise's name surged, so did curiosity. One journalist tweeted a throwback photo of Diana from the early 90s beside Anna's latest headshot. The resemblance was uncanny. Sharp cheekbones, that same determined brow, eyes that cut through pretense. Speculation grew. Blogs ran pieces titled "The Girl Who Dethroned Atlanta's Kingpin" and "A Battle of Bloodlines." Whispers turned into theories. The Atlanta Tribune hinted at sealed records. A former employee of Alexander's confirmed he once dated a black woman named Diana. Alexander's PR team scrambled for silence. But in an age of digital receipts and grassroots media, silence was its own confession. Anna, however, stayed focused. She declined comment every time, because for her, it wasn't about revenge. It was about responsibility. The question that echoed louder than any headline was this: what will she do next? It was a Sunday morning, unlike any other. The choir had just rapped a gospel hymn, voices raised in faith, when a familiar figure entered the double doors of New Light Baptist Church. Heads turned, conversations paused. Alexander, not in his signature designer suit. No entourage, no polished arrogance, just a plain gray jacket and eyes swollen from sleepless nights. He moved slowly down the aisle, each step carrying the weight of decades, a trail of silence, abandonment, and regret clinging to his back like smoke. Diana sat in her usual row, not expecting his presence. Not here, not like this. But she didn't flinch. Her posture didn't shift. The usher hesitated, unsure what to do. Alexander found a corner seat near the back. Alone. No security. No lawyers. No spotlight. Just a man coming face to face with the part of his life he'd left buried. After the final prayer, Pastor Jenkins opened the floor. Anyone in need of prayer or confession, the altar is open. A quiet hum filled the sanctuary. Then came the unexpected. Alexander stood. Some gasped. The others whispered. But he walked to the front, past the pulpit, and turned to face the congregation. He cleared his throat. I don't expect applause. I don't even expect forgiveness. His voice cracked, brittle with remorse. I wronged a woman in this room, years ago. I left her when she needed me most. I abandoned the daughter we made, because I feared responsibility more than I feared God. The room was silent. I built an empire and lost my soul in the process. I used power to erase my past, but the past has a way of resurfacing, not to destroy you, but to teach you. His eyes met Diana's from across the pews. To Diana, to Anna, to anyone I hurt with my pride, I'm sorry. Diana didn't rise in dramatic protest. She didn't cover her face or storm out. She simply stood up, calm and tall, and walked to the front where Alexander remained. The church held its breath. She looked at him, not with hatred, not with pity, but with the clarity of a woman who had survived the fire and rebuilt her home from ashes. I spent years crying for a man who never came, she said, but I also raised a daughter who didn't need your name to have worth. Alexander lowered his gaze. I'm not going to curse you, and I'm not going to thank you for showing up late, she continued. Forgiveness isn't about letting you off the hook. She leaned in just enough for only those near the front row to hear. Forgiveness isn't for you. It's for me, so I can sleep, so I can worship, so I can live. And then Diana walked back to her seat. No tears, no breakdown, just grace. Anna hadn't planned to attend that morning. She came only to drop off flyers for an upcoming youth tech seminar. But when she entered the church and saw Alexander at the altar, her steps halted. She didn't approach. She didn't speak. She stood by the wall, unseen by both her parents, watching the scene unfold. The confession, her mother's response, the collective gasp of a congregation that had known Diana for decades. Something in her chest shifted. This was the man who once tried to erase her existence, who offered hush money through intermediaries, who saw her success as a threat, not a reflection. Yet here he stood, stripped of ego, vulnerable in front of strangers. She didn't forgive him yet, but she didn't hate him either. And for Anna, that was a beginning. The next morning, an email arrived in Anna's inbox. Subject: proposal for Bloomrise. From Alexander Brooks. No assistance, no legal CCs, just a direct message. Anna, yesterday wasn't a PR stunt. It was the first honest thing I've done in years. I know I can't be your father. Not in the way time allows. But if there's any step toward redemption, let it be this. I'd like to invest in Bloomrise as a silent partner. No decision-making. No board seat. No press. Just capital to help you scale your vision. Not mine. Not out of guilt. Out of belief. You're building something that deserves more than applause. It deserves momentum. Anna stared at the screen. She didn't reply right away. She didn't know if she ever would. But something about his tone, the absence of power plays, made her reread it twice. Later that week, Diana and Anna sat on their porch. No TV, no phones, just evening breeze and the soft creak of old rocking chairs. He emailed me, Anna said, breaking the silence. I figured he would, Diana replied. He's got a lot to make up for. I don't trust him, Anna admitted. But I don't know if I'm supposed to. Diana nodded. Redemption isn't easy. And it's not always for the person asking for it. What is it for? For you, Diana said. For your peace. For your future. You don't have to accept him, but you can decide if his remorse becomes your burden or your boundary. Anna sighed. He offered to invest? No strings. Diana gave a small smile. Then maybe he's learning. Anna turned her eyes to the stars above. I'm not ready to forgive. But I might be ready to start asking what forgiveness looks like. And for both mother and daughter, that was a sacred kind of progress. Anna hadn't spoken much to Alexander since the day at church. The air between them had cooled, not out of anger, but contemplation. For weeks, she'd mulled over his offer, a silent investment, no strings attached, no control. Most would have called it generous, but Anna wasn't most. She had her own board, her own mission, her own principles, and most of all, she had her mother's wisdom echoing in her ears. Never let a broken past control a healing future. So she set the meeting herself. They sat in a quiet cafe tucked on the east side, one of the few places in Atlanta where old brick met young vision. She wore a black power suit, confident, clean cut, no apology in her posture. Alexander, on the other hand, showed up in grey slacks, a button-down, no tie. The cuffs of his sleeves were carefully rolled. He looked like a man trying to show he had nothing to prove, but it was still obvious that he did. Anna didn't waste time. "If this is going to happen," she said, "we do it my way." Alexander gave a light nod, letting her speak. "You don't get voting power. You don't get say over hiring. You don't even get to sit in on board meetings." He swallowed. "I understand." She leaned in, folding her arms. "Your name doesn't go on anything. Not the website. Not the funding rounds. Not the pitch decks. This is an anonymous legacy, not a redemption campaign." That one hit. He blinked slowly, absorbing her words like medicine that stung going down. But he didn't argue. Anna continued. "The money you invest will go toward our youth tech accelerator. Underserved neighborhoods, public schools, kids with ideas and no connections. We'll build labs, sponsor startup weekends, train mentors. It's not about the flash. It's about the root." Alexander cleared his throat, quiet admiration slipping through his expression. "That's good. That's really good." She ignored the compliment. "You can wire the funds through the foundation account. I'll have my legal team send you the documents. You don't speak to the press. You don't post about it. You don't show up uninvited to any event we run." Alexander nodded, not even flinching. "Anything else?" Anna exhaled. "Yeah, you stay consistent." He looked her in the eye, then, "I plan to," and for a moment, just a flicker, she believed him. When she got home that evening, Diana was in the kitchen, cooking cornbread and collard greens, humming to an old gospel track. She didn't turn around, but she knew her daughter had something on her heart. "Well?" Diana asked, stirring slowly. "I told him yes," Anna replied, "but with rules." Diana turned now, nodding slightly. "Did he accept?" "He did." There was a silence between them, the kind that meant more than noise ever could. Diana wiped her hands on her apron and reached for 2 plates. "You know, baby," she said, "just because someone was broken when they left doesn't mean they come back whole." Anna sat at the table. "He's trying, Ma." Diana placed a plate in front of her, then sat across. "Trying is different from changing. But you're smart, and you got your daddy's fire. Just make sure it don't burn you." Anna gave a small smile. "I've got your fire, too." Diana chuckled. "Then you'll be just fine." A few weeks later, the transfer was made. A silent fund of $2 million placed into the startup incubator account Anna had named the Soil Initiative, her belief that every great seed just needed the right soil to grow. True to his word, Alexander didn't announce anything. He didn't show up to the ribbon-cutting ceremony. He watched quietly from a news article online as Anna stood beside 3 high schoolers who had just launched a drone program to help local farmers with land surveys. And in that picture, her smile bright, her stance bold, he saw his past and his possibility all at once. He wasn't part of her empire, but maybe he could help build the bridge beneath it. Alexander had always measured his success in numbers, profits, properties, and partnerships. For most of his life, every deal was about dominance, not purpose. But after wiring that investment to Bloomrise, he found himself wanting to do something different, something that didn't benefit him, something that didn't come with applause or headlines. And his thoughts kept circling back to Diana. He remembered the woman who once served coffee at her small catering booth while balancing invoices on a clipboard. The woman who stood in the rain handing out flyers with a baby in a stroller, smiling like faith was enough to buy time. She had been the one constant he could never replace, no matter how high he climbed. And now, as he scrolled through news features about Anna's growing company, He realized it wasn't too late to honor what he had once overlooked. So he called his financial advisor, a man named Markel, who'd managed his accounts for decades. "I want to set up a scholarship," Alexander said, his voice quiet but firm. Markel paused. "For what institution, sir?" "Not an institution. A fund for young women in Atlanta who want to study tech, design, or entrepreneurship." "That's doable. What should it be called?" Alexander took a long breath. "Name it after her. The Diana Monroe Future Innovators Scholarship." Markel looked up from his notepad. "That's generous. Will it be public?" "No," Alexander said quickly. "Anonymous? Just make sure it runs through a trust." A month later, the first notice appeared on a local community site, the Diana Monroe Future Innovators Scholarship, supporting Atlanta's next generation of creators. It offered full tuition, mentorship opportunities, and startup seed grants for 3 students each year. The applicants came from every corner of the city, from young women coding on borrowed laptops to single mothers designing apps after putting their kids to bed. Diana learned about it the same way everyone else did, through word of mouth at the community center. At first, she thought it was a coincidence. Someone else named Diana Monroe? She laughed. There are plenty of us. But when she clicked the link and read the mission statement, something in her chest tightened. The words mirrored things she had said years ago, almost word for word. "We believe in second chances, in teaching those who were once overlooked that their voices belong in innovation." Diana knew Alexander hadn't signed his name anywhere on the fund, but she could feel the truth like a fingerprint on glass. The day she saw the first scholarship recipients, 3 bright young women being honored at a small downtown gathering, she stood in the back, quiet as ever. One of the winners, a girl named Joy, stepped to the microphone. "I applied because my mom always said, if someone opens a door for you, you better walk through it and hold it open for the next girl behind you." That's what this scholarship means to me. The crowd applauded. Diana's eyes watered, not from sadness, but gratitude. She didn't need to see Alexander there to know he had listened to every word she once spoke. In frustration, every dream she whispered late at night when she thought no one cared. This was his way of listening back. Later that week, Diana found a letter in her mailbox. No return address, just her name in careful handwriting. She hesitated before opening it. "Diana, I didn't set up the scholarship for recognition. I set it up because you taught me something years ago. That wealth without service is just vanity. You turned struggle into a platform for others. I only hope this honors that truth. B." She folded the note, staring at it for a long moment before tucking it in her Bible. Then, with a small smile, she whispered, "That's a start." Back at Bloomrise headquarters, Anna found out about the scholarship days later. Her assistant ran in, phone in hand. "You're not going to believe this. Someone just launched a scholarship in your mom's name, fully funded for 5 years. Anna frowned. "In her name?" She clicked through the link. "Read the mission," paused. Diana hadn't told her yet, but she didn't need to. The signature was invisible, but obvious. "Let me guess," Anna murmured. "Alexander." Her assistant nodded. "Should I make a statement about it?" "No," Anna said softly. "Let him have this one." For the first time, her words weren't sharp. They were layered, thoughtful, somewhere between resentment and respect. A few weeks later, Diana visited Bloomrise and found Anna working late, blueprinting another project for underprivileged neighborhoods. She placed a warm hand on her daughter's shoulder. "I saw the article," Anna said, without looking up. Diana smiled faintly. "You're not mad?" "No," Anna replied, closing her laptop. "I think I'm proud that he finally learned what giving looks like. Sometimes," Diana said gently, "it takes people years to learn the kind of lessons we live every day." They sat in the quiet office, mother and daughter, surrounded by photographs of smiling students, community events, and construction sites, turned into hope. And in that silence, something shifted again. Alexander hadn't just funded a scholarship. He'd funded healing. One layer, one name, one act at a time. The scent of simmering spices still lingered in the air, the way it always had in Diana's original catering kitchen. But now the space was larger, brighter, with high ceilings, wide counters, and framed photographs. Of the early days, her standing behind folding tables, Anna at her hip with crayon-colored menus. What began as Diana's humble hustle had grown into Monroe Grace Foundation. Not just a catering service, not just an events brand, but a fully developed organization with one mission: to feed, fund, and fuel community dreams. It started when the calls kept coming. Young girls asking for internships, local women asking how she did it, how she built a business while raising a child, while surviving heartbreak, while working nights. She remembered looking at her old journal and reading the words she once scribbled at a bus stop while Anna slept on her shoulder. "One day, I'll teach others to dream through the dirt." That day had come. She called her old friend Cheryl, who had helped babysit Anna back when Diana couldn't afford daycare. "Cheryl, remember how we used to talk about running workshops? You mean the one-day dream?" Cheryl laughed. "It's time," Diana said. By the next month, Monroe Grace Foundation opened its doors inside a renovated warehouse on Auburn Avenue, the heart of Atlanta's historic Black business district. They offered entrepreneurship classes for single mothers, culinary training for re-entry citizens, branding and design mentorship for teen girls, pop-up markets for local creatives, and every Friday, the kitchen ran free community dinners for the homeless, served with dignity, not pity. Anna had offered to fund the expansion, but Diana refused. "This has to be mine," she told her. "Not because I don't love what you're doing, but because people need to know that legacy isn't only built by tech. Sometimes it's built by casseroles, flyers, and not giving up." Anna didn't argue. She just nodded, eyes shining. "You're right, Mama. Your way built the ground I walk on." The foundation gained local press, then statewide recognition. But more than that, it became a hub, a healing space where stories were shared over soup, where women who once felt invisible now taught classes, on resilience, where teens who never imagined college now ran digital portfolios and pitched clients. One afternoon, Diana stood outside the building and ran her hand along the engraved plaque by the entrance. Monroe Grace Foundation. We rise because we serve. Just below that, a small quote. Built by hands that didn't quit. She had written that line herself on the day the ribbon was cut. In a quiet moment, Alexander visited the foundation for the first time. He didn't make a scene, didn't ask for a photo op. He just stepped inside with a notepad and sat at the back of a class titled Branding for Beginners. Diana noticed him. the moment she walked in. He was older now, face softened by time and consequence. After the session, he approached her with a polite nod. "This place, it's alive," he said. She gave a measured smile. "It's earned—" He didn't argue. "I see now," he continued, "what I missed. You didn't just build a business. You built people." Diana tilted her head. "I told you once. We made it without you. That's still true. But I will admit this. Your silence partnership in Bloomrise and the scholarship fund. They're a start." He looked humbled, maybe even moved. "Do you need anything?" he asked. Diana shook her head. "We don't take donations from regret. But if you want to mentor a few of these boys who need business guidance, that's different." He laughed softly. "I think I can do that." By the end of that year, Monroe Grace Foundation launched a new wing, Legacy Lounge, community library and cafe hybrid designed by former interns who became full-time staff. They named each section after a woman in Atlanta who'd risen through hardship. The center shelf, Diana Monroe, and on the plaque, from broken beginnings to boundless impact. And even though Diana never sought the spotlight, her name became one whispered in reverence across boardrooms, block parties, and beauty salons. Not for fame, but because she showed what it looked like when a woman refused to fold. She had once been abandoned. Now she was the cornerstone of a city's rebirth. The skyline of Atlanta shimmered in the late afternoon. But inside Bloomrise's new headquarters, in West End, the energy wasn't about glass buildings or corporate polish. It was about purpose. The air buzzed with activity, and the floors were busy with employees who looked like the very neighborhoods Anna had come from. Young, old, black, brown, immigrant, re-entry, and overlooked. Anna had made a promise when she built Bloomrise. We rise by creating room for others to do the same. Now that promise had become her company's mission. After securing the city contract in Chapter 9, Anna used the influx of media attention, not for vanity, but for visibility, to attract talent that traditional firms ignored. Her hiring managers were trained to recruit from vocational schools, local HBCUs, returning citizens programs, community job centers. But she didn't just hire, she trained. She mentored. She invested in growth. Each new hire received a tech starter kit, laptop, tablet, mobile credits, a dedicated mentor within the company, free transportation stipends, access to therapy and wellness services. Anna didn't see these as perks. She saw them as necessities. The company's flagship innovation, a community-driven real estate dashboard, allowed users to monitor development changes, submit community concerns, and co-create solutions with Bloomrise planners. This transparency became revolutionary. City councils took notice. Other firms tried to mimic the model, but they didn't have Anna's roots, her story, her why. One of her most celebrated initiatives was the Code from the Block program. It began when she met a 16-year-old boy named Quincy at a youth summit. He had shown her a notebook full of HTML code scribbled in ballpoint pen. "Where'd you learn this?" she asked. "Library Wi-Fi and YouTube." He shrugged. By the next week, Quincy was a Bloomrise intern. By the next year, he led his own junior developer cohort. Anna hired 10 teens that summer, then 25 the next. By year 3, Bloomrise had trained over 200 youth in underserved zip codes across Georgia. The company's expansion wasn't just urban. Anna took her mission into rural, black towns, often left out of tech development. She partnered with churches, non-profits, and barbershops, not just as marketing spots, but as hubs for hiring, training, and listening. Tech shouldn't replace communities, she told her board. It should amplify them. The board had grown too, and not with venture capitalists. Anna insisted on a hybrid council, community leaders, mothers with lived experience, educators, housing activists, tech advisors. It frustrated some traditional investors, but she didn't care. If they couldn't respect the mission, they could leave the table. And a few did, but more aligned partners came in their place. People who believed in innovation with empathy. At a press conference announcing their 5th community hub opening in Macon, Georgia, a reporter asked Anna, "What's your biggest achievement so far?" She paused, then said, "It's not the tech. It's when one of our new hires brought their grandmother to see their name on the office door." She smiled. Dignity. That's the product. Back in Atlanta, the Bloomrise headquarters now had a new mural on its east-facing wall, a depiction of a young black girl holding blueprints and a hammer, standing in front of a skyline. Of her. Build where you were told to survive. It wasn't just art. Anna's story. And Diana? She often visited, not to interfere, but to cheer quietly. She brought warm meals for late-night coders, spoke at team wellness days. She even led a workshop titled Legacy Leadership, the kitchen table way. The staff adored her, not because of who her daughter was, but because she reminded them that power can come in quiet, steady hands. Meanwhile, Alexander, the man who once lived in skyline penthouses and boardroom shadows, watched from the back rows. At company events, he didn't wear suits anymore. He wore polo shirts and listened. His presence remained low-key. No one addressed him as Sir, just Mr. Lex, the man who funded Bloomrise's new scholarship program in Diana's name. He didn't run things. He didn't try, and that, in itself, was a sign of growth. One day, Anna passed a conference room full of new recruits being onboarded. A facilitator asked, "Who inspired you to apply to Bloomrise?" A woman in the back raised her hand. "Ms. Anna. Because she built a company that looks like us, not just in skin, but in soul." Anna stood quietly behind the door, unseen. Tears welled, but she didn't let them fall. Because this was what it meant to turn pain into platforms. The word grandfather had once felt foreign to Alexander. It was a term he never allowed himself to imagine. A title that required presence, not profit. Warmth, not wealth. Patience, not power. But over time, in the quiet corners of Anna's growing empire, Alexander became something else. Not a CEO, not a mogul, just Granddad. And it happened. Slowly, he never asked for the title. He didn't walk in expecting affection. He earned it with silence, consistency, and showing up. Not at press conferences, not on red carpets, but at coding fairs, at food drives, at career days in underfunded high schools. The community began to notice the older white man, who always sat in the back row, taking notes during youth pitches, clapping when students presented their designs. One day, a teenager asked him, "Who are you, sir?" Alexander smiled. "Just someone learning how to listen." At Bloomrise's 5th anniversary gala, hosted in a refurbished community center, Anna's team helped renovate. Alexander stood in the far back as a silent observer. Diana greeted people with a grace that lit the room. Anna delivered a powerful keynote about redefining success in underserved spaces. And Alexander? He stayed behind the spotlight, exactly where he belonged. He didn't ask for recognition, didn't ask for forgiveness in return. He had learned true atonement meant not centering yourself. In private moments, though, he felt the ache of time lost. There were no childhood drawings with Dad written on them. No birthday parties he'd planned. No father-daughter dances he attended. No Band-Aids applied or high school lockers visited. That grief, it lingered. But he didn't let it become an excuse. He transformed that grief into giving. The Youth Tech scholarship he started in Diana's name, it flourished. It funded first-generation college students majoring in tech, single mothers returning to school, older students in re-entry programs, high schoolers developing community tech apps. Alexander didn't just fund it. He mentored the scholarship committee. He met with recipients quarterly, not as a donor, but as a listener. "I'm not here to shape you," he often said. "I'm here to support whatever shape you choose." One afternoon, Anna invited him to sit in on a Bloomrise senior leadership roundtable. Not to speak, just to observe. At first, he sat with his arms crossed. Old habits of boardrooms. But halfway through, as he watched young black professionals dissect problems with precision and propose solutions with vision, he uncrossed his arms. When it was over, he stood and said quietly, "This is the most integrity I've seen in a conference room in 40 years. He meant it, and they knew. At the quarterly community town hall, a mother stood up and shared that her son, once arrested for petty theft, now worked in Bloomrise's logistics team. "He comes home proud," she said, through tears. "We didn't think we'd ever see him smile again." Alexander was sitting nearby. He closed his eyes and breathed slowly. This was the kind of legacy he never built. But Diana had. He was just honored to witness it. Diana, now leading her foundation full-time, occasionally met Alexander over coffee. Nothing fancy. A small shop. 2 mugs. No titles. They talked about the challenges of non-profit sustainability, community land trusts, raising women in a world built against them. They rarely talked about the past. It wasn't denial. It was maturity. They both understood that some wounds don't need reopening, just wise attending. One spring morning, Anna brought a small group of interns to visit a future site for a Bloomrise collaborative center. The lot was dusty. The sun was high. Alexander stood off to the side, holding water bottles. He watched as Anna showed the group blueprints. "This," she said, pointing, "will be our media lab. Over there, childcare for staff. And right here, rooftop garden." A young intern asked, "How'd you come up with all this?" Anna paused, looking around, then said, "Because I know what it means to need a space that believes in you before the world does." She didn't look at Alexander, but he knew. He felt it in his chest. At the ribbon cutting months later, Alexander wasn't on stage. But someone handed him scissors anyway. "Go ahead," Anna said. He looked at her, unsure, cautious. "Just stand with us," she added. So he'd, not as the founder, not as the face, but as part of something redemptive. Together, they cut the ribbon. In time, Young staffers began referring to him affectionately as Mr. Lex. He heard laughter when he entered rooms, not whispers. He felt nods of respect, not skepticism. He had finally learned the most radical thing a man like him could do in spaces he once exploited. Step back, stay humble, and let black brilliance lead. And yet, Alexander never romanticized his new role. He understood what he missed, what he broke, what couldn't be rewound, but also what could still be redeemed. And so he showed up. Again and again, at Bloomrise's end-of-year town hall, Anna closed with this quote: "Sometimes the people we least expect to teach us something end up being the mirror that shows us how far we've come." She glanced toward the back of the room. Alexander nodded once, not for applause, not for credit, just in deep, quiet acknowledgement. Because in that moment, he wasn't just her absent past. He had become part of the future she was building, on her terms. The word family didn't feel simple anymore. Not to Diana, not to Anna, not even to Alexander. Didn't follow tradition. Didn't echo childhood memories, holiday dinners, or storybook portraits. But it existed in fragments, in choices, in something new they were quietly building together. A new kind of family, one rooted in truth, growth, and earned presence, not perfection. There were no family portraits on the mantel, no Father's Day breakfasts, no remember when stories passed down over dinner. But what they had was Diana's laughter echoing through her newly renovated foundation offices, Anna's leadership elevating young voices across Atlanta, and Alexander sitting quietly in the front row of Bloomrise panels, asking smart questions, then listening harder to the answers. One evening, Anna invited both Diana and Alexander to a dinner she hosted for the Bloomrise board and community partners. It was a beautiful night, mild breeze, lights strung across the rooftop, the Atlanta skyline watching in the distance. As the guests settled into laughter and wine glasses, Diana sat beside Anna, and Alexander sat across from them. They didn't exchange many words. They didn't need to. There was something tender in the silence, a mutual awareness. They had all changed, and no, they weren't a typical family. But they were something. Later that evening, a young intern approached Diana. "Ms. Diana," she said shyly, "you and Anna built all this. That's wow." Diana smiled. "We built what we needed, so others wouldn't have to suffer to feel seen." Then the intern glanced at Alexander. "Him? What's his role?" Diana didn't flinch. "He broke us once," she said simply. "But now he funds the healing." The word forgiveness still hung in the air like morning dew. It hadn't been fully spoken, but it lived in the way Anna let him hold a grandchild from one of her team leads, in the way Diana occasionally invited him to meetings, in the way Alexander stopped trying to take credit and just took part. It was forgiveness without fireworks, forgiveness that asked for consistency, not closure. Anna once told her team, "Legacy isn't what you leave in your will. It's what people feel when they say your name." She was thinking of her mother, but that night, as she watched Alexander quietly help stack chairs after a community event, no cameras, no reporters, she realized something. He was changing, and not to erase the past, but to honor it, to make sure the pain he caused didn't ripple forward. Eventually, a few articles surfaced, connecting the dots. A local blog ran the headline: Bloomrise CEO is daughter of former real estate tycoon. Social media ran wild for a few days, but Anna didn't engage. Diana didn't explain. Alexander didn't deny. They let the speculation fade, because now their lives were defined by action, not association. One Sunday, Diana hosted a small garden brunch at her new foundation center. Flowers bloomed from beds once filled with concrete. Youth's murals lined the back walls. Laughter wrapped around every table like sunlight. Anna stood with a mic and said, "My mother taught me that survival is noble. But legacy? Legacy is intentional, and every job we create, every scholarship we fund, every block we beautify, that's legacy." People clapped. Diana blinked back tears. Alexander smiled, his eyes soft. They weren't a picture-perfect family, but they had become a force. And so, the story didn't end with justice served or apologies accepted. It ended with a woman who raised an empire from scratch, a daughter who redefined what power could look like, a man who returned not to reclaim, but to repair. No, they were not the family they once could have been, but they had created something better, a legacy that outlived shame, a love that redefined roles, a loyalty earned, not expected. And as the sun dipped behind the Atlanta skyline that night, Diana, Anna, and Alexander stood side by side, not as wife, daughter, and husband, but as something entirely new. People who chose to build forward together. The morning air in Atlanta was cool and golden. From the wide porch of her modest yet beautiful home, Diana sat wrapped in a shawl, gaze steady as it scanned the horizon of a city that had once tried to drown her dreams. Time had changed her, gracefully. Her hair carried streaks of silver, not as a mark of age, but as medals from a life hard fought and deeply lived. She sipped from her herbal tea slowly, watching the world wake up beneath her. Children riding bikes to school, neighbors waving, the sound of life moving forward. This porch wasn't just wood and nails. It was history. It was the seat of her struggle and triumph, the place where she had once cried in silence, while Anna slept in her arms, the same porch she'd scrubbed with sore hands after 14-hour days just to keep her dignity intact. Now, her business was a foundation. Her legacy stretched across neighborhoods. And her daughter? Her daughter was the face of a new era, but Diana didn't smile out of pride. She smiled out of gratitude, for survival, for healing, for love rediscovered in the most unexpected ways. She had become the woman they said wouldn't win. And she had done it without breaking. Inside Diana's home, on the living room wall, hung a framed Forbes magazine cover. The woman staring back from it was Anna. Bold, confident, beautiful. The headline read, "The CEO who rebuilt the South with purpose." Anna had just returned from speaking at Spelman College, where she'd been invited as a keynote speaker for their entrepreneurship summit. Her speech had gone viral, not because of flashy numbers, but because she spoke from the heart. She didn't just share revenue charts. She talked about growing up in a living room that doubled as a workshop, watching her mother sew tablecloths while explaining payroll. She talked about watching her mother forgive the man who once walked away. She told the audience that building an empire wasn't just about money, It was about meaning. Her tech incubator now had wings in Chicago, Charlotte, and D.C., but Atlanta would always be her home base. Every project she touched involved local hires, youth training, and neighborhood reinvestment. She was building more than wealth. She was restoring dignity to forgotten communities. And through it all, she still came home every Sunday to have dinner with her mother. Fame never made her forget who fed her first. At one of Anna's larger public speaking events, held downtown at the Georgia World Congress Center, an older man in a tailored gray suit found a seat in the very last row. He entered late, unnoticed by most. Security didn't check his name. He wasn't on the guest list. Alexander sat still, his hands folded, eyes on the stage where his daughter now spoke. He didn't try to claim attention. He didn't ask for recognition. He knew better now. Anna, poised in a vibrant navy blue pantsuit, commanded the stage. She spoke of resilience, of community power, of building, even when the blueprint was missing. Her words thundered with clarity and wisdom. She smiled when referencing her foundation of faith and fire. A clear nod to Diana. Alexander clapped with quiet reverence. No cameras turned to him. No one asked his name. But inside him, a shift had taken place long ago. This wasn't the daughter he left behind. This was the woman the world now listened to, and he was content to witness it from the shadows. For once, silence was his offering of respect. Back in her home one afternoon, Diana welcomed a group of high school journalism students working on a community project about successful women in Atlanta. One soft-spoken black girl, maybe 15, sat across from her, holding a notepad. "Mrs. Diana," she asked shyly, "what would you say to women left behind? Women like my mom who are still figuring it out?" Diana didn't respond right away. She looked at the girl, so full of hope, yet still afraid to hope too much. "I'd say," she began slowly, "build anyway. Love anyway. And never believe you're not enough." The room went silent. Then Diana leaned forward and added, "People will walk away. Doors will close. But if you're breathing, you're still building. You don't need permission to become what you were born to be." The girl's eyes welled up. She wasn't just recording a quote. She was receiving an inheritance of courage. Later that evening, Diana stood in front of her mirror in the same bedroom where she had once paced as a pregnant woman, unsure how she would feed her baby. The bed was new, the floors had been redone, but the heart in that room was the same. She touched the frame of the mirror and whispered the words again to herself, like a prayer. Build anyway. Love anyway. And never believe you're not enough. They weren't just words. They were instructions, forged through fire, stitched into every chapter of her story. Her eyes twinkled with that quiet confidence only women who had survived abandonment could know. And yet, it wasn't bitterness that remained. It was clarity. She had forgiven, not because he deserved it, but because she deserved peace. She had built, not to compete, but to live. She had loved, even after betrayal, because love was her birthright. She was the woman they had underestimated, and now she was the blueprint. The story ended not in boardrooms or courtrooms, but in the quiet spaces where legacy lives, on dinner tables, in community centers, in the laughter of kids attending Anna's youth scholarship programs. One evening, a community gala celebrated Anna's contribution to Atlanta. As she stood on stage with her mother, holding a plaque shaped like a phoenix rising, the crowd stood and clapped. Alexander was there too, still in the back, but with tears in his eyes. He didn't take the mic. He didn't steal a moment. The host leaned into the microphone and said, "They didn't just build a business. They built a legacy." The room erupted, not in noise, but in knowing, and somewhere in the silence, between applause, in the heartbeats of every woman who'd ever been told she wouldn't make it, something shifted. Because now, they all knew, winning didn't require revenge. It required rising.